All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. I know Bev has a lot that she wants to give to you. And I am Greg Washington, the Dean of Engineering here at UCI. And I am going to introduce to you today Professor Bevlee Watford. And Bev is currently NSF's Broadening. She's currently a director at the National Science Foundation, a program director. And she works in the Broadening Participation in Engineering program, which is a directorate-wide initiative that looks at broadening participation in general. Um, Bev has been active in this field for a number of years. When I became into administration, we were looking at, I was in Ohio at the time, and we were looking at strengthening our programs in diversity and in outreach. And I began to ask deans across the country who is the go-to person for these kinds of things. And over and over and over and over again, the names of about 3 or 4 people consistently came up no matter who I asked in the country. Bev Watford was one of these people. And so we're ecstatic to have her here today to talk to us about these issues. Those of you who'll be writing career proposals or NSF proposals in general, you know broader impacts is a key component, and it's one of the components, quite frankly, that actually get overlooked and ultimately cause proposals not to get funded because this area is not particularly strong. So I can safely say that there's no better person in the country to come and talk to us about these issues today, and so I'm ecstatic to have her here. We have in our school now, both the School of Engineering and ICS, we jointly share an Office of Access and Inclusion, and Dr. Sharnia Artis here is the person who heads that office for both of our entities. Well, Dr. Artis here is a product of Dr. Watford, and so this whole thing has come full circle for us. So without any further ado, I would like to present Dr. Bevlee Watford.
Child, okay? I'm not that old. Um, but I have known Sharnia for a very long time, since before she started college, so I will leave it at that. So what I want to talk about, and it's funny, I have been working with broader impacts for a long time. This is actually my second rotation at NSF. I went there in 2005 to 2007, and I worked in the Division of Undergraduate Education. And even then, one of the things that we started doing was trying to educate prospective PIs about broader impacts. So I will give you another short story. The Engineering Advisory Committee met, I don't know, maybe about 2 months ago. And the topic of broadening impacts, broadening participation came up. And you know, the AdCom Advisory Committee is filled with deans and department heads and very intellectual and intelligent people. And they basically ended up telling Dr. Karganagar that what we had up there was just too confusing to be understood, and that nobody really knew what to do and how to do it, and that NSF was presenting a very confusing picture. So what I'm going to try and do today is at least add a little bit of clarity to the picture. I can tell you that NSF is looking at this now, at how we present it to the public and what we're telling people, and recognizing that, yes, it is a bit confusing, and hopefully something will happen with this to make some changes. So I'll lead off with that. Okay, turn it on. There you go. Okay, so the merit review criteria, there are 2. Everybody knows this. There's the intellectual merit, which encompasses the potential to advance knowledge. And then there's broader impacts, which is the potential to benefit society. Now, this stuff is straight out of the GPG, the Guide for How to Write a Proposal. There's a whole section in there on merit review. When you start looking at these things, they tell you that what you should be looking at when you view both intellectual merit and broader impact is the potential for the activity to advance knowledge and understanding, to benefit society or advance desired societal outcomes. So again, now we've already confused the issue because I told you before that broader impacts is potential to benefit society and contribute. And now I'm telling you that we need to look at it, both of them, from that standpoint. We should also be concerned with what extent do the proposed activities suggest and explore creative concepts and original thinking and the potential transformative capability of the activity that you're describing. Is the plan well reasoned? Is it organized, coherent? Does it incorporate a mechanism to evaluate whether you were successful or not? How well qualified is the individual to carry out this particular activity? And then finally, are there adequate resources involved? Now, those of us that have been writing NSF proposals for a long time recognize that what happened when NSF changed, and this was maybe 6, 7 years ago, when they changed the merit review criteria, all of these things here were actually considered under intellectual merit. They weren't considered under broader impact. What NSF did was they said, well, if we think that these are the important things about intellectual merit, we should also think that they're the important things about the broader impact activity. So that was the fundamental change that they made. But in addition, NSF has what they consider to be 2 core strategies. The first one is this integration of research and education. It's incredibly important to every proposal that we look at. Through the programs, through the activities, the projects, everything, you're trying to integrate not just research for the sake of research, but research for the sake of educating others, educating our students, educating the public. So institutions have to recruit, train, and prepare this diverse STEM workforce that is going to be able to participate in our technology-based economy. We need to provide the most cutting-edge research for our students. And we need to support the development of a strong STEM workforce by investing in building the knowledge that informs improvements. Okay, so that's core strategy number 1. Core strategy number 2 is integrating diversity into NSF programs, projects, and activities. Okay, and what they say is basically we want to broaden the opportunities and the participation of groups that have been historically underrepresented in STEM fields. And NSF has definitions of who's historically underrepresented. Ethnic and racial minorities, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Native American, the indigenous populations, Native American, Native Hawaiian, Native Alaskan. Persons with disabilities. Okay. And again, we feel that the participation, the full participation of all these groups is essential to the health of our science and engineering. NSF is also committed to this principle of diversity and feels that it is essential to the programs and activities that it will consider and support. So now we've got, just to recap, we've got intellectual merit with intellectual merit and broader impacts, and we talked about those and the big things that we need to consider about each of those. And then we have these 2 core strategies. They seem to be a little overlapping, okay? And that's where confusion starts setting in. So when you think about how am I going to achieve these broader impacts, okay, these societal benefits, you can do it through the research itself. If you are curing cancer and the end result of your research is a cure for cancer, that has broader impact in and of itself. You don't have to worry about other things. That is a huge impact on society. You can achieve broader impacts through the activities that are directly related to the specific research project. It could be students that you are engaging in the research activity, bringing people into your laboratory, bringing teachers into your laboratory, but they're engaging in the specific research that you are doing, and you can achieve a broader impact that way. Or you can have activities that are somewhat tangential. They're complementary to the project, and that might be a summer camp or a mentoring program or outreach to a middle school. It's not essential to the research, it's complementing the research. So all of these are ways that you can actually achieve a broader impact. You can advance the scientific knowledge and goals and activities that contribute to whatever your goal is. These are societally relevant outcomes. They're important. Outcomes include, but are not limited to, the full participation of women, underrepresented persons in STEM fields. Or you could do it through improved STEM education. That's not, directly involving the individuals. Then you are changing the information that's presented to these groups. Two different things. And it could be a STEM education and educator development at any level, K through 12, undergraduate, and graduate educators. The informal education, teaching professionals. It could even be done through that. Increased public scientific literacy. Increased understanding, public understanding of engineering and what we're doing. Public engagement in science and technology. That's another way that you can have this societally relevant outcome to the work that you're doing. Some more. Improved well-being of individuals in society. Development of this globally competitive workforce. Increased partnerships between academia and industry. Improved national security. Increased economic competitiveness of the United States. All these things are societal benefits that can be obtained or achieved through your research. Enhanced infrastructure for research and education. All of these are different things, and again, the point is that it's not just, people have come to think that broader impacts means I need to bring African American students into the work that I do, or I need to bring women into they think of it as broadening participation. They are two different things. Broader impacts is much bigger than broadening participation of underrepresented groups. That is one way of achieving a broader impact. So are you confused yet? Okay, because I am a little. I mean, it's really kind of hard to to get all this together. But one of the points that I want to bring across is that it is a huge area. You are not restricted. There are so many ways you can achieve broader impacts. And we are even in the point where we have to educate reviewers about the same thing. We have to tell the reviewers, just because they are not reaching out to K-12 students, that they don't have to in the proposal. It doesn't make sense in this proposal. They're studying nuclear fission. We'd really rather not have the K-12 students worried about that at this point in time. Let them worry about it later, okay? So you really need to, and that's what I'm going to talk about now is, okay, so how are you going to get and decide what is the broader impact? What are you going to do for broader impact in your specific research proposal? Because it should be unique to what you're doing. Okay, so what I have is we're trying to benefit society or advance societal outcomes. That's one thing. We're trying to foster integration of research and education. That's another area, core strategy. And we're trying to integrate diversity into NSF programs, projects, and activities. So these are, in a sense, the three things that we're looking for in your broader impact. See, I said it wrong. These are the three things that we are looking for. The first one is the broader impact activity. These two are the NSF core mission strategies, but they will play into how your proposal is reviewed. If you look at a solicitation, or you look at, and I spent a lot of time looking at the GPG, the Guide for Programs, it basically says, okay, there's intellectual merit, there's broader impact, and all this stuff about broader impact. Then it says, and these criteria will also be applied to your proposal, these core mission strategies of NSFs. So suppose that you have an activity, and that's the first thing is, okay, so you have your research project, and you need to figure out what is the best way for me to have a broader impact for this research that I want to do. And I assume that you start with the research question, and then you have some goal that you plan to achieve by answering that question. So the first thing that you want to do is look at the research question and goal and say, is there broader impact inherent in my solution, inherent in my achieving that goal? And you want to identify that. It might not be there, but you want to be able to identify that. If it's not there, then you start looking at other things that you can do to find the broader impact and define the broader impact of your work. So, one of the things that you don't want to do is just start listing things. Well, I'm going to go to a middle school, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go to a summer camp, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, bring these urban low SES students into my lab, and just don't think about it. Think about what it is that you're doing, what makes sense to the research that you're doing. Sometimes, as I said, it might make sense to disseminate the activities in a manner that engages pre-college students. It might make sense to disseminate the activities in a manner that engages undergraduate students or graduate students. More is not better. In fact, more sometimes is worse, because it can take you off into a tangent and people are looking at it going, yeah, they're just telling me stuff that they think I want to hear. And that's not what it's about. Describe the impact of the activities. And again, that's what's important. If you're going to do this broader impact strategy, what is the impact? What is the end result? Like that. Develop the strategy. It should be a plan. The same way that you develop a strategy for conducting the research that overarches everything that you do, you should develop a strategy for your broader impacts. You should approach it with the same detail as you're approaching your intellectual merit. And that's what, we used to talk about the fact that most of the proposals we got, the intellectual merit portion was done really, really well. The broader impacts, it was like they slapped some crap together and just threw it into the proposal. Didn't think about it. And the issue is, sometimes you might need to get assistance with the broader impacts plan. Maybe talk to some people about and see, I'm thinking about doing these things. How does that fit in with the research that I'm doing? What is your opinion of that? You want to make your plan coherent and consistent with where you are. You have an institutional mission here at UC Irvine. I don't know what it is, because I don't work here, but I know you got one. You have a culture here at UC Irvine. Make sure that the broader impacts that you're doing is consistent with the goals of the institution and the culture that you work within. It should be also based on your interests and your experience. And I talked to a friend of mine, and this is probably a bad thing to say, but you know what? If you don't like middle school students, don't work with them, okay? Really, because they can tell that you don't really like them, okay? If you like high school students, if you like kindergartners, if you like teachers, if that's the population that you would really want to get involved with, if you like this women's school that exists in the neighborhood where you grew up, find something that's of interest to you and see if you can use that to incorporate into your broader impact. It will make it a lot less painful for you. You might actually enjoy that aspect of the work. Integrate it with your project activities and with the intellectual merit. You should not be able to, and this really kills me, it's almost like you could take this broader impact section that somebody wrote and attach it to another proposal, because there's no coherence between the intellectual merit here and the broader impact. It's just a separate standalone document. That's not what you want. Include metrics and include evaluation. In other words, if you say, okay, my goal is to achieve this broader impact, how are you going to know you achieved that goal? A broader impact is not simply having a summer camp for kids. Instead, the broader impact is you are educating a group of how are you going to know that you have achieved that goal? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward most of the time. You can do a pre and post survey. Survey the students before the summer camp. And in fact, surveys, there are people that spend their life researching surveys, and they know how to write the questions so that the answer is not a foregone conclusion. Like, do you love your mother? Okay, foregone conclusion, because you better answer yes. Okay, so get a survey. If you want to do a survey, get somebody help you create the survey and give it to the kids before this camp and give it to the kids after the camp so you can measure, did you achieve a broader impact? There's evaluation. Okay, so I'll give you one example. Dissemination. Dissemination is a broader impact. And most of you tend to think, well, I will write this paper for the IEEE journal or Journal of Engineering Education, or whatever journal it is that you subscribe to. Think bigger than that. Think differently. And again, what I'm trying to tell you is, okay, I'll get out the way. People are going to look at your proposal, and they're going to look at the intellectual merit, and they're going to come to some conclusion and some judgment. And then they're going to look at the broader impact, and they're going to come to some conclusion and some judgment. And what you would really like is for both of those to be really good. Both of them. So for dissemination, some things that you can think of, think outside the box. You have museums, you have nature centers, you have science centers that engage and interact with the community and the public. There are similar institutions that develop exhibits in these science and math things. Involve the public or industry whenever possible in your research and education activities. I'll give you an example in a minute. Let me see what I got here. Give science and engineering presentations to the broader community. You can go to a museum. Museums would love to have you come talk about your work, to tell the public what it is that you're doing. And in fact, you know what? That helps us. And by us, I'm talking about NSF. We want to get more bang for our buck. We want to give you the money to do the work, but we want to see the more outcomes that we can get, the more people that learn about what you've done, the better for all of us. Radio shows, NPR, and somebody heard me mention this before, NPR is considered the gold standard. I'll give you another one. We had one of our researchers on the front page of the New York Times. You'd have thought he won a Nobel Prize. They were so excited because everybody reads the New York Times. And Virginia Tech's name was out there in the general public. People actually heard of us. Make the data available in a timely manner. And this is always interesting because one of the things that is really popular is, I'm going to make a website. And I'm going to put this information up on the website for everybody to see. And websites don't publish themselves. They don't advertise themselves. And in fact, unless you actually send that website to people, I guarantee you that only your mom will see it. Okay? You've got to tell people these things exist. Put it out there. Social media is a whole nother thing. I have seen faculty members with Facebook pages where they put out stuff about their students and what their students are doing, about the research gains that they're making, all kinds of information. And it's in easily digestible bites. Have you ever seen the Facebook page, I Love Science? Actually, it's got more words than that, but I'm not going to say that word. Have you ever seen that one? It's a great Facebook page. There is so much neat stuff. And people, it's got millions and millions of views. And people are learning about science and engineering through this website because anybody can understand what she's talking about. It's really cool. If you haven't seen it, try it. And there's a clean version. Okay, there is a clean name version. All right, so more. Publish in diverse media. Think of non-technical publications. Letters, research letters, okay? General, anything you can get out there. Press kits to reach broad audiences. Present your research in any kind of forum that you can, including policymakers, your congress people who might be interested in, not necessarily, remember, you got to break it down because we don't know exactly what you do. So you're doing this, but the real implications are this here. And if you don't do this, we'll never get to this spot here. And that's what I really understand. Oh, I see how your research will feed into that. That's really cool. Make people understand what you're doing. Industry people, broader audience, the better. There are a lot more multi- and interdisciplinary conferences out there. You don't have to always hang out just with your own kind. You can often go to other types of conferences that might welcome what you're doing, and it reaches a broader audience. Integrate your research with education, and that's part of this communicating in a broader context. You really should, and I always make a joke when I talk to students about getting involved in research, and I basically say, you know, you're sitting in class and you're listening kind of with half an ear, and all of a sudden the professor says something that actually catches your attention. And it might be about their research. It might be about what they did in the lab. And all of a sudden you've got students coming up to you after class going, that was actually pretty cool. Can I get involved in that? Yes?
In the past, NSF didn't like, the PIs to use NSF funds to approach policymakers, because that was perceived as a lobbying. So now the language is changing. I can see that now.
I didn't say use NSF funds. I mean, what does it take for you to present your information to a congressman? Now, if you're talking about flying to Washington from here, that's a whole nother deal. But you've got local people, and most of the time, they do come back to California every once in a while, don't they? I hope they do. They don't stay in D.C. all the time. Okay, and there's got to be people local. So, again, I wouldn't say you're not lobbying. You are informing. Okay, there's a big difference between those two things. Okay? I'll give you an example. This is the one I was thinking of. We've got a guy at Virginia Tech. His name is Mark Edwards. And Mark started doing studies of lead in water in the Washington, D.C. Community. And I actually heard him speak about it one time, and it was really interesting because I watched him over the years that he was doing this. It really was very, very difficult for him because he was presenting information that people did not want to hear, that the D.C. infrastructure was putting lead in the water, and it was getting to the kids. And so he ends up, this is just research that he's doing, and he decides he's going to tell people. He's going to be very public about it. So he talked to newspapers. He ended up testifying before Congress about this. And there were people that were really, really upset with him because it was going to cost money to make changes, as you would well understand. But he saw it as, in his case, he just saw it as something that he was supposed to do. It was not part of his proposal to go ahead and do these things. He didn't even know that that was the way it was going to work out. But that's what he ended up doing. And I dare say, I saw this young lady shaking her head. He's known for this now. I mean, people that study lead contamination in urban water know who Mark Edwards is. He actually got a Genius Award. He got a MacArthur Foundation Award because of the work that he did. So again, you don't always know where you want to take your broader impact or where you will have the broader impact, but the fact that he was open to just telling people what was going on was huge. So, characteristics. Include the strategy that's going to achieve the impact. Okay, so it's not just, I am going to do this activity. I might have these partners who will help me do this activity, and this is going to be the end result of that activity. And then this is how I'm going to know that I got that end result. Have a well-defined set of objectives for your broader impact. Make the results meaningful. Okay, it's not just a trivial thing that you're doing. And again, the better and the stronger. I'm going to assume that your intellectual merit is absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. You know what you're doing in your research field. The stronger you can make your broader impact and the more integrated you can make it with the research activity that you're getting involved in, I guarantee you your proposal will review better. I guarantee it. Because people will see it's like this whole integrated activity that you're doing, and you're hitting all the buttons. All the buttons. Make it consistent with the technical project that you're involved with. Have detailed tasks for implementation and evaluation. Why did it work? Did it work? Have a well-stated relationship to the audience or audiences, and this is something I mentioned earlier. The worst thing that you can do is say, I'm going to work. I had a proposal. I'm actually in negotiations with someone right now who indicated that they were going to work with the local tribal communities. Anybody, and there was no letter. There was a sentence in the proposal, and that was it. And anyone that knows anything about the tribal communities knows they don't let people just walk in there and do work. So as far as I'm concerned, that was a throwaway line, and in fact, it offended me more than anything else because it said, you don't even know what you're talking about. You have to have letters of collaboration from the groups that you plan to work with. It adds weight to the proposal. Imagine going up for promotion and tenure without a letter from your department head. Would you even think about doing something like that? Of course not. Number one, it's required. Well, think of this the same way. Don't use a tacked-on plan. Don't take it from the last proposal you used and add it to this. And trust me, I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried, okay, really. People have done this. I've actually sat in panels where the reviewer said, I know I've seen that before. And they start going online and looking, and there you go. They use the same plan that they had the last time, and it wasn't that great the last time. Investigate and discuss other broader impact plans, leveraging. So I didn't hear Dr. Karganiger's talk today, but I know something that he has been promoting. And one of the things that he's been promoting is that within an institution, within this room, we've got all these researchers in here. And every single one of you, let's just suppose, every single one of you has an intellectual merit or an intellectual research activity that is perfect for educating high school students. And you each decide you're going to pick a different school, okay? And you're going to pick, you're going off to the south and you're going off west. Can't you collectively, as a university, Sharnia mentioned, there's a list of things that are already going on here that people are doing as normal outreach to high school students. Why can't you leverage that and use what already exists? Believe me, the people that are implementing those programs would really welcome your assistance. They would welcome the intellectual content that you can add to what they're doing. And they will help you. They will, as one of those people, they will trip all over themselves to help you because it helps them. So think about that, leveraging existing things. Dr. Karganiger's attitude is that an institution really should define the areas of broader impacts in terms of programs that are already in existence and putting those up as these are the models. We want everybody feeding into these. If you can, feed into these particular programs. Include, and I mentioned this, the target group in the development of your broader impact. Whoever they are, get their input, get their opinion of what you're writing, of what you plan to do. Be creative. Again, thinking outside the box in this case is actually pretty good. People will remember as they read your proposal, oh, that was the one that was going to do that thing with the museum. Remember, that was so cool. That enhances your proposal, enhances how people look at it, as opposed to the very standard types of things that people often do. So, often in a solicitation, and this is why you got to read the solicitation, Oftentimes, there are lists of categories in the solicitation that they will give you as examples of things that they'd like to see. If they're giving you an example of something they'd like to see, it might be good to give it to them if it fits in with what you're doing. Okay, people like that. They like thinking that they gave you an idea. There are often representative activities on the website. It may not be a comprehensive list. I mean, they're just giving you some suggestions. I gave, similarly when I was describing some of the research programs here, I gave you some suggestions of the research topics. That does not limit you in any way from coming up with something on your own. Develop the activities so that they show impact. And I know I'm repeating myself, but these are the important things that you need to remember. Integrate it, align it with the other project activities, your research activities that you're getting involved in. Help the reviewers. This goes back to that, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Please include clear and sufficient information. The broader impact of this proposal is, or have a paragraph titled Broader Impacts. Describe what you're going to do. Describe the evaluation activities associated with it. Describe what you think the outcomes are going to be. I can't tell you, and I've had people actually ask me this question, I can't tell you how much of your proposal should be dedicated to describing the broader impacts. That's like your student asking you, how long does this paper have to be? Okay? There's no answer. It should be as long as it needs to be. It should be as much of the proposal as you want, as it should be, as makes sense. Make it easy to find, as I said. Make it easy to relate to the NSF criterion. Make them credible. And this one's interesting, including appropriate funds in the budget. Again, you are asking NSF for $700,000, and you put $20,000 into broader impacts. That's not a good idea. Now, don't ask me, well, gee, what percentage, teacher, should I put for the broader impact? I don't know. But it should be something reasonable. It should be something reasonable. I've tried to explain, okay, so what is it, the ERCs? I have to laugh. The last ERC solicitation had $40,000 in it for the REU. That is 1% of the budget. And I wanted, you know me, I'm there saying, take out the 40,000, just put in the 1%, and let's see how the public likes that. Nobody wanted to do that because it didn't sound so good. Okay. Include appropriate funds. Make it consistent with your project scope, your institutional mission, your interests and experiences. Assure agreement between the project summary and the project description. That's always general. You know, in the project description, there's a paragraph that says the broader impact is. That information in the project summary should be expanded on in the project description, and they should match. So, NSF has had a long history. I'm going to talk now, I'm going to change gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about something in the 2016 budget that I mentioned, which is called Includes. And, you know, NSF has been trying really hard. We have this huge portfolio. If you actually go to the NSF website and you type in broadening participation, and this is not broader impacts, this is broadening participation. It'll take you to a website where they have listed targeted programs and kind of incidental programs, and it lists all these different activities throughout the directorate, throughout the NSF Foundation that work towards broadening participation. Despite these strong efforts, NSF feels that we have not done enough, and we have not come far enough, we have not changed, we have not moved the needle far enough. So, and given that, what was it, I think it was last year, 2013. In 2013, the percentage of, when they looked at the kindergarten population in the Northern Virginia area, the percentage of non-white students was greater than the percentage of white students. We are becoming a different nation. Okay, we're looking different. And you look at the state of California, you live out here, you know this. It's changing. Changing demographics. We have to respond to this. If we don't get those people who have not been pursuing STEM as a research career. If we don't get them in it, we're going to lose out. So Includes is this new initiative. They're putting $15 million for FY16, but it should be something that continues. FY16 is being viewed as the pilot year. It's a multi-year effort. In the budget, it actually says 6 years, but we're hoping for more. And the goal is to mobilize STEM research, education, and other communities for scalable solutions to the challenges of broadening participation in STEM. There are 2 specific inspirational targets. We've got networks for STEM excellence and then empowering all youth for STEM. And one of the key things that they've been talking about is this expansion of discipline-based broadening participation activities and the encouragement of other stakeholders. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than the people who are currently working in the STEM field. We need greater participation in solving the problem because we have not been able to address it ourselves. So Includes, okay, so these are some of the guiding principles. We must improve the preparation, participation, and advancement of those that have been traditionally underrepresented. NSF is going to look at, and this is the way that they're presenting it, they're rolling it out right now, collective impact and catalytic innovation. We're trying to look at this problem differently, and that's what Includes is trying to do. And what we're doing right now is we're rolling out these slides, actually rolling out the Includes program to try and get feedback from the general public about what should the program look like. There is no solicitation for Includes yet. We're trying to figure out what is it going to be. Okay, so the existing efforts will serve as a foundation. We don't want to change anything, but we're hoping that we will stimulate additional efforts that's going to lead to a clearly documented change in what's happening. So scaling local success. One of the issues is this whole scaling problem. We've had programs that have within their community done great things. How do we scale those efforts across all STEM fields and across all communities nationwide? And the question is, and I'm not going to, I encourage you to discuss these questions. And feel free, Sharnia can give you my email address, to send me anything that you have to say about this, because we're really trying to gather public input on this. How can these successes be adopted or replicated or scaled to achieve national level impacts? We don't know. Obviously, we don't know. What challenges are we going to encounter? Collective impact is a strategy that requires coordination of more than just a limited group of individuals. It is bringing together a much larger group to try and solve these huge issues that we're facing. And one example is this Elizabeth River project, which was really kind of interesting. So they basically had over 100 different stakeholders. They wanted to clean up this river. They had county, city governments, they had the EPA, they had local businesses, schools, community groups, et cetera. All of these people came together and developed this plan. And the end result was that they had 1,000 acres of watershed land that was conserved and restored. They reduced pollution by an incredible amount. And they could not have achieved this without bringing all these stakeholders together. So that's why what we're saying is maybe we can have some kind of collective impact strategy beyond just those of us that are in STEM that will help us solve this problem of underrepresentation. A catalytic innovation, this is another strategy that may be useful. And basically it's kind of turning things on its head, a disruptive innovation. Low cost, very simple, straightforward things that achieve on a massive scale. So look at Southwest, okay? No frills, okay? No frills airline. And what it did was it catered to people who wouldn't otherwise travel by air. And they're doing incredibly well, okay? The Minute Clinics, these fast walk-in diagnosis and treatment things for common health problems. They're more convenient, they're less expensive than a doctor or an ER, and they're growing. Another one that they mentioned was the micro loans. The guy who did micro loans, the really small loan, huge impact. It's worldwide. Okay, so, and that was completely different than anything anybody ever thought about doing. So maybe that's what we need when it comes to solving this broadening participation problem. So the questions that we're asking people is, what are the things that being discussed today that you think are most compelling and worthy of us looking at? Are there other approaches to impact at scale that we need to explore, that we need to know about? And what are the other steps that you would suggest NSF take when it comes to analyzing and addressing this problem? So again, I tell you that includes does not have a solicitation. We're going to be writing that based on the input that we get from the public and obviously internal to NSF as well. But this is the first time that I've seen something that has the potential to really make a change on a massive scale. And I think that's what we need. We can't keep going around improving things at UC Irvine and improving things at Virginia Tech. Those are local. And this is a nationwide problem. It's a worldwide problem, actually, in some aspects. But I'd settle for solving it within these U.S. borders at this point. So, thank you for listening. I hope I gave you some information that was useful and maybe thought-provoking.